Hello everyone and welcome to another video on my channel, and today I'm doing something a bit different. Basically this year marks the 25th anniversary of Constraction, which are also known as buildable, constructible action figures, and LEGO has been producing them for 25 years. And I thought in order to celebrate that, I thought I would go over the history of Constraction figures. Now, just as a quick disclaimer, some of these lines have stories to them that I will not go into because then this will be a little bit too long. So I'm just gonna go over the figures themselves, and yeah, now I've got that out of the way, let's get into this. So the first Constraction figures were released as a Technics sub-theme were released in 1999 as a Technics sub-theme called Slizer. So in the United States these were called Throwbots. Don't know why, but yeah, these figures were the first figures that LEGO produced that had ball and socket joints, which are what every single construction line has, and they were very cool. Like, these figures are pretty basic. There were 8 of them produced. There were 4 good guys and 4 bad guys, which was cool. There was also a bigger one released the same year, and then the second year had only 3 sets, but they're alright, I guess. Yeah, they're also pretty good. But then the same year, 2000, LEGO produced another construction theme, which was Robo, which was also a Technics sub-theme. So they don't really look like construction because they're mainly just vehicles, but they are considered construction theme. First off, there are some smaller vehicles, and then there are larger bikes. Which, by the way, I forgot to mention, but the Slizers has some small little minifigure weapons on them. That's cool, and these ones also have. And there was also a a bigger one, which was also cool. But then in 2001, LEGO produced their longest lasting construction line ever, and it was called Bionicle. And there were a lot of figures this year. First off, there was the Toa, which were basically the main heroes, the main protagonists. And there were the villagers, which were the majority were the villagers. Then there are Tuaga, which are basically the chieftains, and then there are the Wahi, which are the beasts, which is very cool, and they came in pairs, which is interesting, and you can use them to battle against your Toa. Try and knock their masks off, and a lot of the all of the heroes have masks, which is pretty interesting. And now Bionicle was only made to last 1 year, but it lasted until 2010, which is crazy, or at least the first one did. But let's move on to 2002. First off, there was the Boak Va, which looked pretty strange to me. But then there were the Owak, which were these balls that could basically fold open and basically have feet and arms, which was very cool. There was also a Master Builder set. That's kind of an interesting idea. But this was the first year where there were Titans in the theme, and there were some very cool ones. Then there were also the Toa Nuva, which were basically updated versions of the Toa with new armor and weapons, which is super cool. And but then moving on to 2003, we have the Boa Cow, which were basically the same Boa but with silver on them. And these did not sell well apparently, and they almost killed the whole team. That's crazy. But it did not, because the second half of 2003 was at least good. The Matoran returned with some but they were slightly updated, which was cool. And then there were the Wakshi, which were the first kind of human-like figures. Yeah, I mean, they're not humans, but they were at least they at least looked like a person with their body and their hands and their feet, so that's cool. And there were also some cool Titans this year. Then we move into 2004, which before we take a look at Bionicle from 2004, in 2004 there was another line that was introduced, and that was Knight's Kingdom 2. which was the next Castledine. But LEGO decided to make figures for him, which was interesting, and instead of using ball and socket joints, these figures used ratchet joint, which is kind of interesting. But yeah, this was very interesting that they tried to basically produce figures for one of their other lines. Pretty interesting, if you ask me. But going back to Bionicle, there were the Toa Metru, which were the first Bionicle figures to have bendable arms, knees, and could move their head. That's actually very cool. And there were also some more Matoran produced. Then there were the Vaki, which were also standing on 4 legs. They look kind of strange to me. Yeah, they were very strange. There were also some very cool Titans produced as well. And then we move into 2005, which let's return to Knight's Kingdom 2. The figures, they were basically the same figures from 2005, but they were updated pretty much. But going back to Bionicle, we have the Viscera, which were these spider-like creatures, Wahi, remember? There were also the Toa, which were the next Toa, which look pretty crazy. And there's also the Oaxaca, which are these small little things there. And there are also some more cool Titans, like they were very, very cool. And another thing was in 2005, LEGO decided to make playsets for Bionicle, but I don't know if I should cover those because it's not really construction. So I don't know if I'll cover them. So I'm gonna skip over those and let's move on to 2006, where which this was the year Knight's Kingdom 2 ended. So it did something interesting where they produced 4 smaller figures where 2 of them were good guys, 2 of them were bad guys, and that was pretty interesting. But then there were 2 bigger sets which came with builds, like a catapult and a battering ram. So that was pretty cool. Just a cool way to end the whole theme. But going back to Bionicle, there were the Proaka, which look pretty creepy if you ask me. But they have glow-in-the-dark, like especially their teeth. They're crazy teeth. But they glow in the dark, which is interesting. There were also some Matorans, which the design didn't really change that much. Then there were the Toa Inaika, which had light up swords. That's interesting. Are they Jedi? I don't think they are. But the Titans got a bit of an update this year, where basically they used pistons for angles, mainly because the figures were heavy, so they had to use those to keep them standing up, which was a pretty cool move like that. And then we move into 2007. We have these Bawaki, which are pretty crazy underwater people. There are also some Matorans for this year, but there are also something called Hydruka. Don't really know what that's supposed to be. Definitely a wild beast, but then there were the Toa Mari, which are basically underwater versions of Toa. Cool. The Titans also continued, again using pistons, and this was also the year the playsets ended, so that was that. But then going to 2008, things took a different turn, because normally you would get heroes in the same style and then villains in their style. Basically the heroes and the villains were never built in the same style. But that will change in 2008, where we got heroes and villains in the same type, which was interesting. First off, we got some more Matorans. Some of them were even evil. That's interesting. But yeah, the first off, there was the Fantoka, which had 3 heroes and 3 villains, which was pretty cool. And then there were the Mystica line, which also had 3 heroes and 3 villains, pretty cool. Also, I should mention this, which is in 2007, the lime green sockets actually were pretty brittle because they used a different type of plastic for them. And brittle means that it can easily break. So in 2008, they had to redesign all of their sockets pretty much. But unfortunately, that was a step in the wrong direction. Where if you put a ball inside of a socket, even if it's not green, it would break if you used it more than once. That is so ridiculous for something that's supposed to be reused. But there were also some other titans this year, but there were also some vehicles which primarily use Technic, but they look superb, pretty cool. And then we move into 2009, which instead of having Toa, we have the Glatorians, which are basically fighters, and there were some good guys and some bad guys. They were pretty mixed up. But these ones were different because instead of using masks, these Glatorian used helmets, which is interesting. There were also something called Agori, which were basically kind of different versions of Matoran. And there were also the Glatorian's Legends, which are kind of the same as the Glatorian just Express. This year was also the last year with Titans, for at least for Bionicle's first one. And there were also some vehicles this year which also look pretty intimidating. But and then in 2010, Bionicle ended with the Stars, which were basically just remakes of older heroes and villains. So that was Bionicle's original one. But in 2010, two more construction lines came out. First off, there was Ben 10 Alien Force, which actually did not do well. I think it's because it did not look like LEGO at all. Like it doesn't look like LEGO to me, honestly. But the same year, we got a theme that was made to basically fill in Bionicle's shoes while it was gone, and that was Hero Factory. And the heroes themselves weren't very different from the other Bionicle characters, but they were decent enough. They were actually pretty cool. There were also some vehicles that went along with them, which is actually pretty cool. So yeah, pretty cool. And there were also some villains introduced, which are also pretty similar to previous villains. And yeah, so but in 2011 things would change a lot because 2010 would be the last year for those brittle 2008 sockets. Because in 2011 we get something new, which was the character and creature building system, which are basically Lego bricks but for action figures. And these were first introduced with Hero Factory's second wave, the Ordeal of Fire, where the heroes make great use of them, and so did the villains. Now there are actually some other Lego mechs that actually use some of these pieces, which is kind of interesting that they use them. They use these pieces for mechs. Pretty interesting. Anyways, in 2011 there was also Savage Planet for Hero Factory, which the heroes were pretty much the same, but just with animal features. And the villains were also animals. Even one of the heroes got a Titan version. And 2011 was also the last year a Titan would use pistons for the ankles, if they even are ankles. I don't know, but yeah, and the piston pieces did still appear in many LEGO sets, but they weren't used for angles after 2011 until this year, where they were used on a Ninjago mech from this year, which is pretty interesting that they made a comeback there. Then in 2012, Hero Factory had Breakout, which pretty much changed the theme slightly. Basically, for oh my gosh, how do I say that? In Hero Factory's 3 first waves, the heroes would be in the same size, and the villains would be in very different sizes. But here they did something interesting. To prevent the heroes from pretty much being the same hero in different colors, they decided to do what they did with Bionicle in 2008, make the heroes and the villains in the same type, which was a very smart move. So the heroes are a lot bigger now, and they are actually a little bit better and not samey. The villains were pretty crazy, like they were kind of interesting. But they also did something interesting. They did something else in 2012, which was basically produce action figures for some of their other teams. And in 2012, DC and Marvel were introduced, and they produced figures for those two teams. And they were kind of hit or miss. Some of them were good, some of them weren't really that good. But then we move into 2013, and we have Hero Factory Brain Attack, which this wave was also breakout where the heroes and the villains were in the same type. So yeah, that was pretty. I think it was pretty cool that they still did this. But yeah, it was. Yeah, I think they did a very good job with this. So that was cool. But then in 2013, they also tried to make action figures for Legends of Chima, which was near the time, and they were all white. They produced a figure for the 6 main characters, which was cool. And then in 2014, Hero Factory ended, where this time the heroes were in battle machines, fighting off against evil beasts. But they did something interesting where they basically made the heroes minifigures, and they put them in these big battle machines, which was pretty interesting. But I actually like this approach a lot, because instead of basically trying to make a mech that can fit one of the buildable characters, well, then not only would that mech be very, very big, but also it would be very expensive. So this was actually a very smart move, and they were really good. The beasts are also pretty cool. Yeah, they were actually pretty alright, I guess. But yeah, that was Hero Factory. But yeah, if you wanted some construction figures where the figure art, the actual thing you build, well then the Legends of Chima also got some figures this year, though they didn't produce any for the Outlanders wave. Instead, they just produced some for the Fire vs. Ice wave, which was pretty interesting. But the smaller sets aren't really that good, if I'm being honest. But the two bigger ones are pretty decent, if I'm being honest. But then in 2015, Bionicle came back, and basically there was also a couple of different types of sets, just like originally. So first off, there were the Protectors, which were basically the Chewbacca, but a little different. And then there were the Toa Masters, which were basically the Toa, obviously. You need those. And then there were the Skull Villains, which were pretty interesting. Yes, they are actually pretty cool, I guess. And there was even a 2-pack, which was pretty interesting. But then in 2015, LEGO tried making action figures for another one of their for another one of their other lines, and that was Star Wars. So they produced some characters for Star Wars, which was actually pretty interesting. Then in 2016, Bionicle continued. This time we had the elemental creatures, and as well as the Toa Unitors, which could apparently combine. There was even a set with a Unitor and an elemental creature. Pretty interesting. But yeah, there were also some other villains produced. The Shadow Horde, interesting name. And we also got the only Titan from Generation 2, because, well, apparently the Generation 2 also ended the same exact year. Now they still continue to produce figures for Star Wars, and at first they were very popular, but when Rogue One came out, they produced figures that were based off of characters that weren't very popular, and that unfortunately resulted in these figures not selling well. In 2017 there was even a figure with a vehicle. That was cool. But in 2018 the whole line ended, and the whole character and creature building system ended pretty much. There were two other Star Wars ones that were planned to come out in 2018 but were cancelled. And then Constraction was pretty much dead. Like, there were no other Constraction team that came out after 2018. However, in 2022, LEGO produced a Iron Man figure, which didn't really look that good. But then later that year, they produced some Spider-Man figures for it. And it turns out that this was the future of Constraction, where basically they produced buildable characters for their superhero lines, which was interesting. And the 2022 ones were pretty bad, but the 2023 ones were pretty decent. They even produced one for DC, which was cool. Heck, in 2024 they did something even cooler, which was make a figure that came with a vehicle, which was pretty cool. And yeah, this is actually very cool. And yes, so that was actually pretty interesting. So while the figures may not look very good, at least this is the future of Constraction. Also, I can't forget, in 2023 we got a Bionicle throwback set to celebrate LEGO's 90th anniversary. So that one existed. Yeah, that's pretty much it. That's pretty much the history of LEGO Constraction figures. So yeah, these have been quite hit or miss. There have been some ups, there have been some downs, there have been some very good ones, there's been some pretty bad ones. But hey, at least it's had a very long journey, and it's, even though it died at one point, at least it's back in some way, shape or form. But yeah, that's pretty much it for this video here. I don't know, I think this video has been going on for too long, but yeah, so I'll pretty much end this video right now. So that's it. If you liked it, make sure to leave a like, and make sure to subscribe to my channel and hit that bell notification button, so that way you'll get notified when I upload a new video. So that's it for now, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.